Welcome to a Friday Reads, where I'm going to talk about what I read and what I'm reading, and hopefully going to finish by the end of this month. I have a week left, and if you hear a cat, it's because you do hear a cat. He is doing his nightly rounds, making sure everyone is safe. At least that's what I tell myself. I actually don't know what he's yelling at 90% of the time. So, we're going to talk about some stuff I finished, and if you saw the title of this video, I finished The Wheel of Time. I don't even know. I've been reading The Wheel of Time since 2019, and I finished it on Monday. It was President's Day. I didn't have work, and so I think I read 35% of that book while crocheting the blanket that I showed you guys a couple weeks ago, and that included in one sitting I consumed that 200-page chapter. I don't know how long it is. The audiobook chapter length is 9 hours. It's about the length of Prince of Nothing, which if you watched my young adult video, I had listened to. So it was very long. It wasn't a bad chapter. I don't have an answer yet on if this whole experience of me since 2019 reading 15 Wheel of Time books was worth it. I don't know. But I can now watch all of the content. I can now have all of my own opinions. And, I'm going to make a video or two. I'm for sure once Stephanie finishes up, we're going to do some sort of live show. Because we've been buddy reading this since 2020 together. We started with Dragon Reborn, so that's book 3. And so we've been on that journey. I think some other people might join us, but for sure, Stephanie and I, we are going to debrief on this experience. And yeah, so I'm for sure, bare minimum, there's going to be a should you read. Because that's what I do when I finish series. And it will be tempered. I did know, continuing Wheel of Time, that it was not the series for me. And I never asked it to be at any point. There were some things I asked of it, and sometimes it delivered, and sometimes I'm like, the bare minimum. The bare minimum. Why could we not accomplish this? But a lot of that is on me for continuing, even when I knew this isn't really you, Angela. This isn't really for you. What I can say, having read the last book, is that that book was made for fans. That book was made for the people in the forums with their fan theories and figuring out who did what where. And I'm happy for those people, because I think, got a relatively solid ending. I think even in the fandom, there are some parts of that ending where we're just like, did we have to shoehorn in everything? Because eventually sometimes it felt a little too cramped. And I was 0% surprised when I heard an interview where Sanderson was like, this was the one that had the most revisions, and suddenly there were so many people having opinions on what needed to be in it. Because it felt like that, unfortunately. It felt like a book where everything needed to be fit in, and even though Sanderson split the last book into 3 books, there just wasn't enough space, or time was spent on stuff that I didn't think we needed to spend time on, but obviously people can disagree. But my spoiler-free thing is I don't think I needed Gawain perspectives. I don't think I needed it. That's my spoiler-free take, is we could have removed all of those, and then there are 2 perspectives of people I do not remember the names of that are introduced end of the 13th book, beginning of the 14th book. I don't know. And if they were introduced earlier in the series, they were so inconsequential. I still don't know their names. And they got 20 to 50 pages of screen time over main characters. And I'm just I understand what we're doing here, but I think there was probably a better way to do it for my taste. But again, also, I recognize the series is not for me. See, I have a lot to unpack with Wheel of Time. I haven't figured out how I'm going to do it besides the live show. And then also that I've been thinking about doing a character tier list, because that could naturally get a lot of my emotions out, because a lot of my issues or things that I do are centered around characters. I haven't decided if there is any type of Wheel of Time content you want me to do while all of this is in my brain and I have a lot of opinions. Let me know, and that might guide me. But bare minimum, there will be a spoiler-free should you read. And with the intention, as I always have with those, of getting that book into the right person's hands. I'm not just gonna shit all over it, because it is not a bad series. I know I complain about it a lot, and that's just because it's an aggressively 3 to 3.5 star series for me. It's completely fine. And I think if people didn't talk about it in such hyperbole, I wouldn't even have that many issues. I just hear it talked about with such hyperbole, which I get that. When you have something that is a favorite of yours, that's what you do. But I don't know. That's probably why, because when I hear people talk about it, they have so much fun, and then they describe things. I'm like, oh, that sounds like such a cool part of the world building and the magic, and yes, that sounds perfect. And then the experience of hearing that and reading it are really different. and I felt let down because the only warning I was given was repetitiveness, which, like, honestly, if I were to make a list of things that bothered me, I don't even think I would have put that on the list. Like, sure, it is, but, like, feature not a bug, and, like, that at one point or another didn't bother me nearly as much as the stuff that did. So, anyways, Wheel of Time. I finished it. That just means I can get back to Malazan in a month or two, and Dandelion Dynasty. I'm pretty pumped about it. Another thing I finished was Lone Woman by Victor Laval. This was amazing. What a great buddy read. We all had a phenomenal time. Like, I think we all had 4 to 5 star experiences. And it was funny because we all, like, kind of finished it, I want to say, within 36 to 48 hours of each other. So we got to really have, like, a conversation in real time. Because this is, like, a fast-paced kind of book. Or at least it's a book that you are so intrigued, and that keeps you going through maybe the slower paced beginning. And then there comes a point where it's like, yeah, I just need to see how this resolves. I need to get there. And so that's kind of how the book feels. And I don't even think it's that long. I don't know the page number. I would guess like 350. I have no clue. But I've read The Changeling by Victor Laval, and if you like The Changeling, I think you're going to like this, because I think it's just a lot of similar storytelling devices that he uses. Like, if you were bothered by The Changeling, I think a similar thing might bother you here. And I'll just be like really vague about that. But the premise of this is we have this young woman, she's like 30, I believe, and you open up a scene with her like burning down her family farm with her parents in it, and there's blood everywhere, and you have no context as to why. Like, what an opening, right? And then she's traveling from California to Montana to start over again as a homesteader. And then she gets to meet a bunch of people, and there's town interactions, and then there's also still this looming what's in the box. Like, there's literally like this what's in the box energy. And it's one of those horror, thriller, supernatural stories that is so great because it is captivating and entertaining in its own right, just as a story. Plotted well, great characters you love to love, characters you love to hate, going at it. But also the thematic discussions underneath all of that is woven so expertly. You can choose to engage with it and take a lot out of it. You can choose to leave that behind. It's my favorite type of work like that. I think I was talking about this last week with Girl, Woman, Other, although that's more of like literary, so it's definitely a little more thematically driven. And also, if you're someone in your historical fiction, speculative or otherwise, has been wanting representation, the representation is so good in this book. It's so good. So I'm not surprised, because I really love The Changing by Victor Laval. But I'm really happy that I like this, because I didn't love The Ballad of Black Tom. So this was great. Had a fantastic time. It was like the perfect like moment too, which I didn't know if it would be, because it was like, oh, it's buddy read time. I need to somehow sneak this in. And yeah, I just had a really good time. I will say there's usually like one little thing about a Victor Laval book that like prevents it from being a 5-star, and I don't know what it is. I just think that maybe like somewhere in the middle I lose my momentum a tiny bit. Not that the pacing really slows down, it's just that like, I don't know, there's just some X factor quality. I don't know what it would be, but also that could all go away on a reread. And both of his works I feel like are so rereadable, because they do have moments that could feel to any particular reader like a twist, like a reveal. But they're also reveals that are not necessarily super shocking, depending on how familiar you are with the genre or how good you are at guessing and predicting things. But at the same time, for both works, I guessed certain reveals and things like that, and it didn't matter, because like, I love it. The reveal is actually just so important. It doesn't matter if you guessed it or not. Like, if you didn't guess it, I'm sure there's like this extra like, oh my goodness moment maybe. But also there's still an oh my goodness moment, because the reveal is still substantial. It's still, even if you were right, you still have to then deal with the ramifications of being right, you know? It was a very, very, very good book. March is full of fantastic releases, and this is one of them. Highly recommend. So those are things I finished, you know? So I'm still just can't believe I finished Wheel of Time. Still working on Africa Risen. I don't know if I really have anything. Let's see. Were there any stories that really stuck up to me since the last time we talked? I think so. I think the one that I did like the most, oh gosh, there were some dark ones. I think that's just the thing that I would mention, is that most of the time anthologies, like, I mean, there are, I want to say at least 40 stories in here, so at least 40 voices. So you're going to get a wide range. So it's hard to be like, this anthology is like X thing, pick it up if you like, because there's so much in it, right? And like the connecting tissue to this anthology is, you know, bringing an opportunity to highlight speculative voices from African descent or African nations, things like that. But I will say the curated collection of this leans fairly dark. Not all of them are that dark, but it's pretty dark, pretty morbid, So just know that going in, sometimes very graphic. Especially there's a lot of body horror, a lot of graphic scenes that we've had in many stories. My friend Shannon, who I'm buddy reading this with, she has a very visual imagination, so she normally liberally DNFs when things are too graphic for her, too much body horror and stuff like that. And this collection, she's had DNF more than other collections we've buddy read because it's just consistently a thing that seemed to be curated for this collection, which might be a great buzzword for you if you like tackling those darker themes in short bursts. And I actually think there's a lot of value in those stories. It's just something I want to be like, this is not a light, fluffy sci-fi anthology by any means. So that's where I'm at there. We're definitely going to finish by the end of the month. We only have that much left, so I'll somehow wrap up my thoughts in some way. I never know how to review anthologies that are this long with that many stories. Like, there are so many stories. This is just, like, some of the authors. So, yeah. And now I am in the middle of 2 things that I'm hoping to finish by the end of the month. We'll see. Although, I guess, honorary mention to the fact that I did read another 2 pages of this, so hopefully I will continue to pick this up. I have no new thoughts. But this still exists, and I'm not going to finish it by the end of the month unless somehow I find a lot of motivation very soon, which is not likely. But Jocelyn and I are both feeling healthier, so we're picking it up again. Here's hoping. But the things that I am working on, I am a little bit of the way into Even Though I Knew the End. Funny story. I had this copy earlier this month, and then I had to give it back to the library, and now I have it again, and now I get it for way longer because it was like a new release when I first took it out, so you could only have it for 2 weeks, and now I guess it's an old release now. Who knows? But I think I'm only like 3 chapters in. I'm somewhere still in Act 1. This is split into 5 acts, and I really want to read it when I'm in the mood to just sit down and read, and that's been escaping me. Because so far, what I know is I'm liking C.L. Polk's writing. I think. It's not like gripping me, but that could just be my headspace, to be quite honest. And also, 1940s noir detective stuff, supernatural, is not like my happy place. So being kind of like weird reading mood, you know, we're fighting against that, but I am intrigued. Our opening scenes with her and interacting with her brother, and then also going to date night, and this ominous idea of her time's running out. Like, that is brought forth right away. And the love that she shows to Edith is quite touching. And so I do think that's going to be something I'm really invested in when I can sit down and, like, read. So we're working towards that, but I will say that I really love the world, the writing, these 2 characters so far. I mean, I say that only being like 30 pages in, so hopefully that momentum keeps going. I care very little about this mystery intrigue, but I kind of knew that would be me going in. Mysteries are not in their own right usually intriguing to me, which is interesting because I do like things that are mysterious and where I have questions and don't have answers. But for some reason, that in the form of a straight up what happened here, whodunit mystery doesn't always work for me. But I picked this up hoping that this character interaction would be my, like, what pulls me through. And I do think that'll happen. I've only been with both characters on page together for like 1 chapter. I'm just waiting for my brain to cooperate. I'm a little further into this one. I guess it doesn't feel like I am, but I'm 7 chapters in to Empire of Silence, which is very, very shiny. So I'll just put a picture on the screen because this one's also heavier. Okay, so I am both trying to physically read this and listen to it. I haven't immersion read it yet. It's just more like trying to get myself to consume it when I'm able to. Because I do think I like physically reading this like a hair more than listening to it, although the audiobook is fine. It's just that, like, I can notice I am missing things in developing the scenes with audiobook because, like, I pay attention to different descriptors in audio versus physical sometimes. I don't know. That's a conversation for another day. It's just, you know, sometimes a reading experience is different, physical versus audio, and I think in this case it would be different for the better if I was immersion reading or physically reading, but motivation has been scarce. And so far, you know, it's you can feel Dune. You can feel the Dune inspiration on its sleeve. We have Hadrian with an H. He is the first son of this, essentially a duke. I don't know if that's officially his name. It's this person who's in charge of this planet with all this nuclear stuff. Pretty classic space opera setup of, like, trading wars in the midst of this actual intergalactic battle between this other species of people that we hear about. And we are coming to this story from a place of Hadrian being like, I'm older now and I'm going to tell you my story. And I guess, you know, he's this legend in his own right? Like that, you know, it's not the Name of the Wind trope, but the most popular version of the trope is Name of the Wind. So that's where we come at this. And initially, I'm I'm liking the approach to how scenes are built and our focuses within the scenes, right? Like, I don't dislike how we look at conversations around the table, his interactions with his brothers, with his trainers. I think my issues show up a little bit when Hadrian gets a little too introspective. Is it navel-gazy? I don't really know, but I can currently not tell if this character is written to be pretentious intentionally, or if this is all an accident and I just think this character's pretentious. I cannot tell. Because the introspection is from an older perspective. It's not his young brain, because I think he's like 17 as we're looking at the beginning of the story, thinking about it. It's like him in the future thinking about the role of like truth versus fact in religion. Like, there's just a lot of philosophizing that I'm just like, okay, sir, like, all right. And granted, I don't know what Hadrian's been through. I don't know what he's done. I don't know if any of this is earned because I am 6 chapters in, but I am nervous that I'm going to get more and more annoyed with this character as the series goes on. We'll see. There's a lot of stuff I am liking. And, like, in general, Hadrian is on the side of stuff that thematically I'm also on the side of, you know, not really pro-slavery. He generally is more of, like, a thinker. He's less about the blood and gore that the civilization seems to thrive on. I don't know. Like, I can see him being a compelling protagonist. And honestly, a lot of these types of protagonists, in order to go where they go, are kind of pretentious and arrogant. But it's just going to depend on how much I'm forced to, like, deal with it. We'll see. I don't know. So both of these books have a lot that could go really well. I think even though I knew the end has less that could go wrong, I think there's definitely more that can go wrong with me in the entire Sun Eater series. So yeah, and as we approach the end of the month and I see how it's working and not working for people, I think we are going to have a vote on Patreon being like, should we continue or not? And like, obviously, if people want to continue, there will be buddy read channels opened up for anyone who wants to keep reading it. But if there's enough interest, we might vote on a new series to keep going with, because it does, at least in my Patreon, seem pretty divisive when it does and doesn't work for people. Although the greatest sin I've kind of heard so far is just boredom in the middle, which, like, I'm not even gripped right now, so I'm a little scared. But we'll see. After I film this, I'm going to hopefully sit down, read a bunch, maybe, or maybe I'll fall down a YouTube rabbit hole again. We'll see. We also saw the new Ant-Man, and I love Ant-Man movies, and if you like Ant-Man movies, this was pretty fun. I don't know. I have such, like, an average bar for what I expect from an MCU movie. I was, like, really nervous because this has such low ratings, and it's just a really fun movie. Like, it's just a really fun sci-fi movie. Like, I don't know. I just had a good time. Maybe I just have too low of a bar, but, like, I went into it expecting an adventure sci-fi with Paul Rudd. That is exactly what I got. So, that's that. If you want to leave an emoji, leave a bird, because I think even though I knew the end has birds on it. And otherwise, like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.